In two identical letters to the UN, Syria warned that suicide explosions have become a common practice by armed terrorist groups. Russia and Iran stress intention to continue their efforts to stop the violence in Syria to pave the way for a political solution and dialogue. 3 new complexes for uranium enrichment have been inaugurated in Iran. Good afternoon, this is News in English from the Syrian television in Damascus. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has affirmed in 2 identical letters addressed to the President of the United Nations Security Council and the UN Secretary General, that the suicide explosions and the recurrent shelling of civilian areas in Damascus and several other Syrian provinces has become a typical practice of the armed terrorist groups. The letters stressed that those armed terrorist groups have been receiving a huge material, logistic and political support by countries inside and outside the region that encourages them to disregard regulations and laws and deepen their conviction that they will never be subject to accountability in light of the double standards policies resorted to by some states in terms of their commitment to the combating of international terrorism. The message voiced Syria's determination that the terrorism of those killers will not make it desist from continuing its struggle against terrorism as the Syrian Arab Army continues to perform its constitutional duties in defending the homeland and its sovereignty and protecting the national institutions. The message stressed the Syrian people's stand on the side of the Syrian Arab Army and the rejection of the practices of these criminal destructive groups and their extremist ideas. International reactions continue to denounce the suicide terrorist blast that took place yesterday between Sabah Bahrat Square and the Shahbandar area in Damascus and claimed the lives of dozens of citizens, including women and children. Lebanese President Michel Suleiman condemned the terrorist explosion. The Information Bureau at the Lebanese presidency quoted him as calling once more for dialogue between the government and the opposition in Syria so that a political solution can be found away from violence and dangers of extremism and fragmentation. Russia strongly condemned the terrorist explosion. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Alexander Lukashevich stressed that the extremist groups in Syria must be met with a unified deterrent response in the international community. On his part, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ramin Mahmoudbrest denounced the explosion, which he said is aiming at consecrating instability in the region. He said the Syrian people are well aware of the ugly intentions aimed at undermining security and stability in the area and will exercise their right in defending their country's national sovereignty. Mahmoudbrest said such acts are the responsibility of sides financing and supporting the armed terrorist groups who try with their crimes to compensate for their frustration in confronting the resistant Syrian people. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Alexander Lukashevich has reiterated Russia's resolve to continue its huge efforts to put the situation in Syria on the track of a political solution that helps initiate dialogue among all parties on the basis of the Geneva Statement. Lukashevich stressed that Russia strongly condemns all forms of terrorism against civilians, warning that the scenario of the continuation of armed conflict threatens with chaos that would lead to deterioration of the security condition and encourage international terrorism. He pointed out that the crisis in Syria would be subject for discussion during the ministerial meeting of the Group of the Eight to be held in London on the 10th and 11th of this month. Armenian President Serge Sargsyan and Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi have warned that foreign interventions in Syria's internal affairs have further aggravated the situation in the country. Salehi reiterated his country's support for the political program to solve the crisis, which was proposed by the Syrian government. He also affirmed during the meeting his country's support for the Syrian people to practice their right to self-determination in a secure and stable atmosphere. He added that Iran's stand towards the crisis in Syria is clear and transparent. With the participation of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and head of the Nuclear Energy Organization in Tehran, Iran has inaugurated 3 complexes for electronic activation and uranium acid processing during its celebrations of the National Day of Nuclear Technology. The Iranian president said his country is about to possess nuclear technology, pointing out that Iran has become a producer of the yellow cake after it used it to import it from abroad. The project is considered a prominent example of producing uranium from natural sources. Syrian Army engineering units defused today an explosive device planted on a private car in Jaramana city in Damascus countryside. A source told Sana reporter that the device was attached to a parked pickup truck in that area. Syrian Arab Army units continue its mission in pursuing fleeing terrorists from Jabhat al-Nusra and other mercenaries. The army units fully cordoned the eastern Ghouta, preliminary to a series of operations aimed at clearing the area of terrorists. The army has accomplished the second phase of the operation and cut off the road of supplies for the armed groups from Jordan in the direction of Al-Ghouta. A military source has said that a unit of the Syrian Arab Army has foiled today an attempt by a suicide bomber to blow up his truck, which was loaded with about 3 tons of explosives that were hidden among potato bags on Al-Mastoumi Idlib road. The source added that the Syrian armed forces defused an explosive device near a military checkpoint on that road. New evidence of the West's support of terrorism was revealed by the Dutch Channel 2, which uncovered documents that have been distributed inside mosques in the Netherlands, offering a full travel plan to join the fight in Syria.
Misleading young men and recruiting them in the ranks of the armed terrorist groups that wreak havoc in Syria is a phenomenon that grows dramatically. The Dutch Channel 2 published a document that presents a full travel plan for the Dutch who intend to join the terrorists in Syria, starting from Amsterdam airport until the Turkish-Syrian borders, and then to Aleppo. The channel revealed that dozens of Dutch departed under these documents that were distributed within the mosque in Netherlands under the call for al-jihad. The channel also affirmed that 2 Dutch young men were killed in the battles in Syria last month, and there are videos filmed in Aleppo recording conversation in Dutch, while other videos revealed the existence of Belgian terrorists in Syria. This is not the first time that such facts are being unfolded, as the evidence of the regional and international complicity in funding, sheltering, providing the terrorists with weapons and sending them to Syria are so many, and are repeatedly published in many major newspapers around the world.
Within the same context, the terrorist group Al-Qaeda in Iraq said Jabhat al-Nusra was part of it and had the objective of establishing an Islamic State in Syria. A leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, said that Jabhat al-Nusra is only an extension of the Islamic State of Iraq and part of it. Al-Baghdadi also announced that the upholstery of the name of the Islamic State of Iraq and also the name of Jabhat al-Nusra to get them under one name, which is the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. The terrorist group of Jabhat al-Nusra had claimed responsibility for hundreds of terrorist suicide blasts which took place in Syria that killed hundreds of people and injured others, including women and children. In Egypt, the death toll of the clashes between Muslim Brotherhood and Copts at the St. Mark Cathedral in Cairo rose to 8, as 90 others were injured. The Egyptian Ministry of Health said the injured included 11 policemen. The clashes at St. Mark Cathedral were renewed today morning after unidentified men opened fire against the church. Security forces positioned around the cathedral also threw gas bombs to stop the clashes, injuring a journalist. Within this context, the National Rescue Front held President Morsi, his group, and the Interior Ministry responsible for the clashes, while a number of political parties issued a joint statement condemning the events at the cathedral and asserting that the Interior Ministry, like Morsi and his group, the Muslim Brotherhood, is violating the sanctity of holy places, including Al-Azhar Mosque and the cathedral. Demonstrations were staged in the towns and villages of Bahrain demanding Al Khalifa authorities to release the detainees and condemning the statements of the British ambassador in Bahrain and his accusation to the demonstrators that they are terrorists. The Bahraini opposition organized a sit-in in front of the quarter of the British Prime Minister's David Cameron in the centre of London, condemning the British support for the Bahraini authorities and their way of dealing with the popular protests in the country, affirming determination to continue this movement until their demands are met. That was it. More details on our website in English, www.syriaonline.sy. After the break, new legislations to deal with money laundering in our economic news. After the break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Cabinet has approved a draft law that includes amending some articles in Decree number 33 of 2005 about controlling both money laundering and the financing of terrorism. The Minister of Economy and Trade, Mr. Mohammed Zafar Mhabbak, issued a decree allowing importers to put the used trucks located in the Syrian free zones under local consumption, taking into consideration that no more than 9 years should have passed since the manufacturing of such vehicles. The regulations mentioned in the decree issued by the Ministry in 2011 allowed all the importers to put the used fire squads, vehicles, ambulances and garbage trucks present in the Syrian free zones under local consumption on condition that the vehicle is registered according to the customs data and it is in a good technical status evaluated by a specialized technical committee. Al-Quneitra Governor Mr. Malik Muhammad Ali said that the expected quantity of apples from the occupied Golan for this year is approximately 18,000 tons, the biggest amount since 2005. Moreover, the governor added that all procedures regarding weight and classification are taking place successfully. He added that the amount of golden and stalking apples has exceeded 4,200 tons. Futures of the Brent crude rose 40 cents per barrel following data that showed a slowdown in the Chinese inflation, more than what was expected last month, which may offer the opportunity to continue the monetary easing policy. European shares climbed and the US stocks rose as investors speculated that the first quarter earnings may help the equities rebounded from their biggest weekly decline of the year. While Asian shares gained, on the other hand, Japanese shares remained high, supporting the Nikkei index, which rose 0.9% up to the highest levels in 5 years. In the local market, the Jewelers Assembly set the price of the 21-carat gold gram at 5,050 Syrian pounds, as the Rashadi golden coin was set at 36,800 Syrian pounds, and the English coin was set at 41,200 Syrian pounds per gram. The yen strengthened, rising from its weakest level against the US dollar since May 2009, as traders bet on its recent decline, which was too rapid. The Japanese currency advanced against all of its 16 major peers, halting a 3-day 6.4% plunge against the greenback, the most since 1988, whereas the euro was little changed against the US dollar. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.